My name is Brianna Rushing, and I am giving a biographical speech on the life struggles and accomplishments of Marilyn Monroe. What if you had been in and out of foster care systems? What if it seemed like all the odds were always stacked up against you? What if obstacles were constantly thrown your way at an extremely early age? Would you let your past define your character, or would you strive to create a better future? Take a moment and think about all the iconic figures in American history. Which ones come to mind? As a well-known sex icon, Marilyn Monroe, also known as Norma Jeane Mortensen, should be one that comes to mind as one of the most successful women of her time. Even though many people view her life as a large success, that was not always the case. The truth is that Marilyn Monroe faced many hardships in her adolescence that could have severely impacted her outlook on her future. She could have let her past define her future, but she stayed strong and made several accomplishments. Let's start by taking a deeper look into the childhood of Marilyn Monroe. As stated by American National Biography, Monroe's father was undetermined at the time of her birth. Her mother was unable to care for her. She was seen as mentally unstable and was sent to a mental institution. Monroe even expressed that one of her earliest memories she had of her mother was of her trying to smother her with a pillow. Because there was no one to properly care for Monroe, she began her long journey through the foster care system and orphanages. She was sexually molested as a child, which caused her a large amount of trauma. At only 11 years old, she was raped while being in one of her many foster homes. She somehow managed to overcome all the obstacles that were thrown her way at an extremely early age. In 1937, she moved in with a family friend to escape the orphanage. The family friend ended up having to move for work, so Monroe had to decide to either return to the orphanage or get married. Now, that's not something any person should have to decide as a teenager. But to prevent having to go back to the orphanage, Monroe married at only 16 years old. At 16 years old, an adolescent should be worried about who they're going to prom with, not who they're going to have to marry to avoid having to go back to an orphanage. As stated in her life by Albany.edu, Monroe married James Daughtry in 1942, but the marriage ended only 4 years later in 1946 so that she could further her career. Now that we've seen all that Monroe has gone through, let's take a look at the positive aspects of her life. Monroe started her career after being noticed by a photographer named David Conover, who worked for Yank magazine. After being noticed by Conover, she began her modeling career, and in 1946 she signed her first movie contract. She dyed her hair blonde and began referring to herself as Marilyn Monroe for her acting career. She starred in several films throughout the years, such as Niagara, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, The 7-Year Itch, Some Like It Hot, and several others. Along with modeling and acting, she also had the opportunity to sing Happy Birthday, Mr. President at John F. Kennedy's birthday celebration, and that is no small feat. Overall, Marilyn Monroe had an extremely rough childhood that included orphanages, foster homes, molestation, rape, and a large lack of parental guidance. She was left with no other options but to either get married at 16 or return to an orphanage. She decided that getting married was the better option of the two. After being noticed by a photographer, she began her modeling career, which also led to her acting career. Even though Monroe faced many trials and tribulations, in her youth, she managed to achieve fame and become known as an American sex icon. It just goes to show that a person's past does not define their future. It doesn't matter what type of background you come from, as long as you have ambition, determination, and hope. What if your life was similar to Marilyn Monroe's? Do you think you would have given up, or would you have strived for greatness just as she did? Thank you. Have a wonderful night.